Business with a servant's heart. Welcome to the podcast. Business with a servant's heart. Listen to the podcast. We're all about to talk on life. Our guest will share his life story. We want you to success in life. We're ready and we will start shortly. We're gonna talk on life. We're gonna talk on business. You're gonna shine bright. We are gonna witness. Business with a servant's heart. Welcome to the podcast. Business with a servant's heart. Listen to the podcast.
He said, I don't know what to do. And we help bridge the skills from military service to the civilian world. We help with resume preparation. We help with skill building. We help understanding all the different military terminology and how that translates into civilian world. For example, I had a gentleman who was an E7. He was a staff sergeant in the Army, sergeant first class in the Army. And he said, I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go. I said, perfect. Let's talk about that. That's exactly what we do here at Fenix Foundation. And all of the skills that he had learned to be a leader, to get people to do things on time, to motivate people, to talk to people and counsel people, all of that transitioned into a management role. He just didn't realize it. He said, I'm going to go out from leading 30, 40 people to doing what? And I said, well, let's get that going, right? So we transitioned all of his skill set into management. And so I took him aside and I said, okay, let's work on your leadership skills that are usable, but maybe slightly different from what you did in the military, right? You're not gonna, go tell somebody in the civilian world to go do some push-ups because they did something wrong. So that's a little bit about what we do.
I want to invite you into the Business Network, my free school community for entrepreneurs and business owners who want to grow their network and scale their business. Inside, you'll get step-by-step lessons, monthly workshops, feedback, scripts, resources, bonuses, and a community of like-minded people who believe in helping each other win. Join us today at school.com, the Business Network, and click Join Group. I'll see you inside.
Welcome, everyone, to Doing Business with a Servant's Heart podcast. I'm your host, Steve Ramona. I always say this, but I love bringing my veterans on, especially when they have businesses. I'm going to say it again. I say it all the time. I would hire 50% of my staff. Veterans have retired because of so many things. We won't get into today, but we're going to talk about a really cool nonprofit and talk to a veteran. Before we do that and bring the guest on, here's our gratitude for today. You're amazing. The best is yet to come. Wow, is that exciting? The best is yet to come. Embrace that, because that's what's going to happen to my guest. He's just starting out. He's told me some of the things he's doing, but the best is yet to come for him as well. So let's bring our guest on. Pedro, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for having me. It's great to be here. I'm excited to get to talking and getting through this.
Let's jump into the nonprofit that you started. And by the way, thank you for your service. I want to speak for the audience as well. I appreciate your service. And what branch were you in? The Navy,
Army.
right? Army. Sorry. Don't want to do that Army-Navy game. You don't want to get in trouble with that.
No. Let's not go down that path.
Well, let's jump into the nonprofit. Tell us all about it.
Sure. So the nonprofit is Fenix Foundation, and we can be found at www.fenixfoundation.info. And what we do is our primary goal is to try to get veterans transitioned into civilian life. One of the things that was very difficult for me was getting out of the military and trying to figure out, what do I do next? Now, transitioning from military to civilian life has definitely gotten better over the years. But when I left the service in 2006, there wasn't much for anything. They didn't tell us what to do. They didn't tell us where to go. They basically said, here's your paperwork. You're going to leave. And when you do leave, good luck. Have fun. Enjoy civilian life. And that is in stark contrast to what we go through in the military. Military life is very structured. It's very organized. And people will laugh when they hear me say organized, especially the veterans, because they know that the military is probably the most disorganized organization in the world. We have a saying, right? It's hurry up and wait. And that's kind of the running joke is hurry up and wait. But everything is planned out for you. You know where you have to be, you know where you have to go, you know when you have to be there, you know how you have to get there. And when you leave that structure, things can get overwhelming very, very quickly. And one of the things that was even more difficult was not having that person that, we say somebody's always got your six. Somebody's always got your back. Somebody's always watching out for you, and you have battle buddies and you have different things, right? And you've always got that backup in the military. But when you leave the military, you don't have that anymore. And it's every man for themselves, and nobody wants to help you. And you get your first civilian job and you go, okay, I need some help. I'm new at this. I don't know what I'm doing. So you go and you ask Joe down the hall, hey, how do I do this? Oh, well, that's not my job. You need to go ask somebody else. And nobody cares about you. Nobody cares what you're doing. Nobody cares enough to help you and get you through those things. And so that is our primary goal. Our primary goal at Fenix Foundation is to help transition veterans into that civilian life. We do that through different projects. One project it's called the Bridge Project, and we help bridge the skills from military service to the civilian world. We help with resume preparation. We help with skill building. We help understanding all the different military terminology and how that translates into civilian world. For example, I had a gentleman who was an E7. He was a staff sergeant in the Army, or excuse me, sergeant first class in the Army. And he said, I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go. I said, perfect. Let's talk about that. That's exactly what we do here at Fenix Foundation. And all of the skills that he had learned to be a leader, to get people to do things on time, to motivate people, to talk to people and counsel people, all of that transitioned into a management role. He just didn't realize it. He said, I'm going to go out from leading 30, 40 people to doing what? And I said, well, let's get that going, right? So we transitioned all of his skill set into management. And further, on a different side of the spectrum, I'm an engineering leader. And so I counsel and consult other engineering leaders. And so I took him aside and I said, okay, let's work on your leadership skills that are usable, but maybe slightly different from what you did in the military, right? You're not going to, go tell somebody in the civilian world to go do some push-ups because they did something wrong. So that's a little bit about what we do. And then the second thing that we do, once you've already been out of service, right? And you're trying to figure out how to regain that camaraderie that you had in the service. And you're trying to figure out, okay, how do I get back in contact with veterans that know what I'm going through, that I can talk to every day and say, hey man, I'm really struggling in this area, and they're going to understand you. So what I do is I bring veterans together, and the overlanding community or camping community is very big, very inviting, very friendly. So I'm already an outdoorsman, as most veterans are. Most veterans tend to seek that solitude, tend to seek that outdoors, the connection. And when you have other veterans that go along with you, it's no longer about solitude. It's about reconnecting with people that understand what you're going through. And so I put together a lot of outdoor events. I put together a lot of camping events. And I partner with other nonprofits as well to do the same thing. Because as you know, I'm not the only one out there. And so when we all get together and we help each other, then we can get far more results than trying to do it on our own.
You know, it's interesting you're talking about veterans. It reminds me of college students. It's kind of the same thing. They get done with college, graduate, go, yeah, I got to do interviews, but how do I do interviews? How do I do a resume? It's not taught a lot in college. Sorry for the people, if you're listening, you're in the college education industry, but the same with the military. So I'm going to ask you a very blunt question, and let's dream a little bit here.
Yeah.
If you were the military, what would you change for the military, for people in the military when they transition out? How would you change it?
So the military usually knows when somebody's going to transition, right? It's either medical or their contract is coming up or any number of things that leads to them transitioning from service, okay, or leaving the service, right? It's not usually just a all of a sudden tomorrow you're gone. It's a process. Just like you went through a process to join the military, there's a long process to get out of the military. You have to go through records, you have to go through medical, you have to go through all these different steps. One of the things that I believe they need to include is interviewing skills, resume skills, and the thing that I'm showing veterans is how to translate your military skill sets. Especially a lot of the people that I deal with are mostly combat related MOSs or jobs for the civilian population listening. The civilian job market doesn't transition well for combat MOSs, infantryman, combat engineer, combat medic, all those different, military police even. I have a really good friend of mine who she was a military police. And when she left the service, she thought, okay, well, I'm going to go be a police officer. Well, that didn't work because the police department said she had habits that were built in the military that didn't transition well to police in the civilian world.
Wow.
What do you do at that point? And so you have to then look back at, okay, what other training do you have in the military that you could then utilize to go do something else, right? So a lot of the people I deal with are combat related MOSs because those are the hardest to transition. I can tell you I've helped intelligence analysts, I've helped clerks, I've helped supply clerks, I've helped all different types of MOSs transition into civilian world. But by far the hardest has been the combat MOSs. And that is where I think in general, right, the military needs to focus on being able to transition those skills into the civilian world. And how do you do that? What is the definition? What aligns with combat technician? What civilian job aligns with that? And even if there isn't really a civilian job that aligns with that, what skill sets have you learned? You've learned program management. You've learned files. You've learned management of personnel. And all those different things are things that the military does not teach you when you're transitioning from service. So that's a big area that the military needs to really focus on is when our military veterans are transitioning, how do we get them in a situation where they can succeed outside of the military?
Where you fill the void. It's powerful. Probably the government should hire you. I'm throwing it out there. Government, hey, hire
Yes, they
Pedro's
should.
nonprofit to build all these different offices to do that. And it sounds like students too. That's pretty much the same problem, except for combat guys, guys and girls. They're not going to go around and get a job as a CPA and shoot guns. I mean, you don't need that,
Right.
armory and all that skill set just doesn't transfer, except for police officer. If they're not accepting it, then they're kind of stuck. Isolation sounds like the other problem. You were mentioning camping. So veterans that listen, I do have a number that do. How do they get out of their isolation?
That was probably my hardest thing to do, was reaching out. So when you're in the military, one of the things they tell you all the time, right, is suck it up.
Yeah.
Suck it up, throw some dirt on it, take some Motrin, get over it. Okay. And we don't address any of those scenarios at all. And so when I left the military service, it was, how do I connect with other veterans and not sound like I'm just that guy, you know? And then I realized it's not even about that. It's they are also going through the same thing and they don't know how to reach out either.
Yeah.
So what do? You create a environment that's inviting and that introduces subjects and starts talking about it without even getting into the just suck it up kind of scenario, right? You go out into the environment, so you go camping, you go overlanding, whatever you want to call it, you go four-wheeling, whatever you want to call it, but you get out of the civilian distractions, you get out of the city, you get out into the middle of nowhere with just a bunch of veterans, and you all just start talking. And eventually, you just introduce the, hey, you know what? I had this scenario where I felt so alone, like I was the only one going through all this. Any of you guys ever feel that way? And then you'll notice that they just start opening up and they just start talking and they just get that conversation going. And all of a sudden you realize every single one of us had the same scenario. We all felt like we couldn't talk to each other. We all felt like we were still that suck it up mentality. And all of a sudden, now Joe's got connections for us over here. John's got connections for us over there. Jose knows this guy that can help you with that. And all of a sudden, we've got a network going on. And that's really all it is, right? Is just getting out of your own head and understanding that you're not the only one going through it. And there are groups out there to help you with that conversation so you don't have to feel so alone.
So military has a network. Your colonels, generals, sergeant, hierarchy, that's a network. So you're just saying, okay, let's take that and bring that to the civilian life, incorporating civilians, but also military veterans in this support network. That's powerful answer, Pedro. It's huge. Now, the other thing that I've learned from veterans, I want the civilians to understand this. I forget the guest's name, and I apologize if he's listening, but he said when he got out, he walked into a grocery store to buy cereal. He had 45 options. It drove him bananas because it's so structured and regimented in the military. There's a name for it. If you remember, let us know. But that's a big problem for veterans, right?
Yes, yes, absolutely. I mean, okay, you go into the commissary. The commissary is not Walmart. The commissary has only a select items. Whatever they are told to sell is what they sell. Okay, whatever government contract they have, that's what they sell. And a lot of times you go in there and you go, okay, there are four different cereals and they all look the same, you know? So you go in there and you go, okay, you have corn flakes or this kind of flakes or those kind of flakes, and you grab one and you go. And commissaries are usually based on the size of the base that you're stationed at. So if you're in a smaller facility, you have even less options. So when you get out and you go, and this is especially true for veterans that served overseas. And I don't mean overseas in combat areas. I mean like in Germany, for example. If you were stationed in Germany, if you were, and I say Germany because that's where I was a lot of the time. If you were in Korea, if you were in different places, those had even less selection than your stateside bases. And here's the reason why. Your stateside base, you could easily go off base and go to a Walmart supercenter. You could go and you could experience that, right? Most of the time, you don't. Most of the time, you stay on base, which is when I talk to veterans, that's usually what ended up happening. Oh, you were in South Carolina? Cool. Did you go out into this area and that area? No, I was on base working most of the time. And then when I didn't work, I just wanted to rest. So yeah, I get it. So when you're in those areas like Germany, for example, your selection is even more limited because even though it's a US military installation that is run by the US government, not Germany, the import of certain things is still regulated. Now, I'll give you a great example that I know for sure I'm going to get myself in trouble with. Like, we had Levi's that were imported into the military base, okay? And we paid American prices for those Levi's. Well, the Germans didn't pay American prices for Levi's. They paid imported prices, which were usually triple what we paid. So a lot of the entrepreneurial military members realized that if they bought some Levi's on base and sold them to the Germans off base, they could make a lot of money. But that's, one of the things, right? And another one was there was certain brands of cigarettes that were imported to the US bases that were not imported to Germany. But a lot of the Germans liked this particular brand of cigarettes. So you could make money that way. But we're going totally off topic there. So
Sorry.
so back to the point here. Yes, it is very overwhelming when you have a built-in structure. And this goes into one of the things that I speak about outside of just the nonprofit. When I speak about the psychology of leadership, it's a psychological effect that occurs when you have everything structured for you and you go out to something that's not structured. Your brain sees that as a threat. Your brain looks at options as a threat. And civilians don't quite understand that because most civilians have never had a structure in which their wake-up time was dictated to them. Their time to be at formation is dictated to them. And every second of their life is basically planned for them. And most civilians never experience that. And so for a veteran, leaving that kind of structure, that kind of organization to go out into a world that is now, you wake up whenever you want, you go to the store whenever you want, you go this and that, and people don't have that background, it is very chaotic. And the mind perceives that as a threat.
Interesting point. Very interesting. Because you're talking about mindset, which is the hardest thing to change. People talk about all over the internet, all over people, which is great. Speak about it. So you really change the military's mindset, veterans' mindset to do the schedule, to figure that out, and they just can't do that alone.
No, it's very difficult to do it alone. And this is where nonprofits like myself, Fenix Foundation, where we jump in, right? And we help. So one of the things that I do a lot and I teach a lot when I talk to veterans is, how did the military get you to do all those things? They forced you, right? They forced you. They physically taught you how to do it. Okay, in basic training, they rewrote your brain to now wake up at a certain time, do certain things, and jump when they said certain things, right? Well, now you have to rewrite your brain. And we do what's called the practice paradox, okay? One of the things in the military that they teach you is practice how you fight, okay? And what that basically means is you're going to learn the steps exactly as if you were in that combat scenario. You're going to go out and you're going to do live fire training. You're going to go out and you're going to do training with blanks, but you're doing it in an environment that is very similar to where you are going to go actually into combat. And that is called the practice paradox, because our brains are wired to understand scenarios. You can read a book to your mind's content. You can watch videos until you're blue in the face, but until you actually do it in the scenario in which it is intended to be done, your brain is not going to hardwire that in and set it into, like, for example, a computer, right? You save a file, it now knows where that root file is. Your brain doesn't do that until you practice it in the actual scenario. So what I do with veterans is I show them, this is how you wake up again. This is how you structure your brain again. This is how you rewire everything, but you have to do it in practice. You have to do it in the environment. If not, you're just telling yourself things that are going to be overwritten by the hardwired stuff that was put in the military. Now, do you have to be as hard on yourself as a drill sergeant was or as your platoon leader is? No, of course not. But you do have to have the discipline to set an alarm and wake up right when that alarm goes off. And the more you practice that, the more your brain then knows alarm means up. And I go through that with veterans and I show them. I also do it with leaders when I do consulting, is the practice paradox. You have to practice what it is that you want to change in your brain in the environment that you want it to change. If not, it won't stick.
Beautiful. Practice paradox. What a great way to end the show. This is just an absolute blessing, Pedro, what you're doing. Thank you again for your service and serving veterans. And it's great of veterans doing it because you understand. Let's end with a fun question. So I'm going to come out where you live and you can tell me your favorite restaurant. I'm going to book a table. So bring your family with you, but I want you to invite 3 people who've been influential in your life to come have dinner with us. And for me, I want you to order the meal. What would that meal be?
Oh, wow. That's something I didn't see coming for sure. Um, I mean, I'm a big fan of spaghetti. So it's got to be some kind of spaghetti bolognese or some kind of spaghetti. And I also like to just add some red pepper to it.
Ooh, I like that. Okay. You sold. Sold. Who's eating with us?
All right.
And who would you invite?
Oh, um, I think one of the people I would invite would be Jordan Peterson. Another person I would invite would be a historical figure, which would be Nikola Tesla.
Ooh.
And I probably, God, one more, and it just, there's so many that come to my head that I can't
First one that pops
put
up.
it down. First person that pops up, even though we had a rough one, I would invite my dad.
Beautiful. Yeah, that's great. And Nikolai, I would love to talk to him about Tesla and see what he thinks about all these cars. So I'm glad you picked him. Be quite interesting. Audience, this has been a blessing. So I'm going to do a favor to all of you. If you listen this far, the podcast, I'm going to reward you. First 5 people to reach out to me or Pedro, I'm going to send you a gift if you mention this podcast. I want to reward you. This is the world of rewards. I love rewards. Something that you could do, and it's probably going to be a book or something. We'll talk when you do that, but just mention the podcast. And with that being said, Pedro, how can people reach out to you and connect?
So you can reach out to me directly at pedro@voltariumtech.com, or you can visit the website, which is www.fenixfoundation.info, phoenixfoundation.info. You can reach me through either of those. You can also find me on LinkedIn at Pedro Chavez Leader. And or if you're really looking for it, you can also find me on www.pedrochavez.jr.com.
Beautiful. Well, great ways to connect. Thank you again, Pedro, for taking the time. And audience, share this out if you know a veteran, or if you are a veteran, watch it again, or reach out to Pedro because it's going to be life changing. I'm going to guarantee you, I'm not been in the military, but I have a brother and my dad was in the military, so I saw some of this. It's a problem right now, and Pedro's solving that problem. We just need people to see Pedro and connect with Pedro so he can do his great work and help others. So with that being said, me and Pedro want to thank all of you for watching or listening to this podcast, and we'll see you all in the next episode of Doing Business with a Servant's Heart. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.